Hello, guys and gals, and this is another book reading. This time it is going to be Bonny's Big Day by James Herriot. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that last name right, but I'm hoping I am. I'm a big fan of James Herriot. I know he's got all kinds of great books out there. He wrote All Things Great and Small, no, All Creatures Great and Small, All Creatures Big and Beautiful, maybe, something like that. And plus some compilations of cat stories and horse stories and stuff like that. Anyways, what we have here, also that song was An Ending. It is from the video game Undertale, and it is by Toby Fox. But for the sake of this one, this is also illustrated by Ruth Brown. Now, I got at a yard sale for $2. Totally worth it. I probably already have a copy of this book actually somewhere, but anyways, it's good to have another copy. This is a copyright 1972 and 1987 actually. Illustrated 1987 by Ruth Brown. And the art in this book is amazing, by the way. So kudos and special mention to Ruth Brown for these wonderful pictures. And this is such a good story. I mean, look at this. This is beautiful. I mean, it's like scenes from a movie. It's really good. One sunny morning in early September, I drove to see old John Skipton at Dale Close Farm, since he had telephoned to say that one of his cart horses was lame. Oh boy, I know what they do with lame horses. They ain't pretty. So hopefully this goes good. Oh. Okay. As I got out of the car, the untidily dressed figure of the farmer came through the kitchen door of Dale Close. John always seemed to look like a scarecrow, and today was no different. He was wearing a tattered, buttonless coat, which was tied around the waist with string. His trousers were much too short, and as he hurried towards me, I could see that he was wearing socks of different colors. One was red, the other was blue. By working very hard when he was a young man, Mr. Skipton had saved up enough money to buy his own farm, with its handsome stone house. He had never married, and because he was always so busy looking after the sheep and cows on the hill, bringing in the harvest from the fields and picking the apples in the orchard, he had been much too busy to worry about himself, which is why he was always dressed in such very old clothes. And that really is a beautiful house, by the way. That's cute right there. That's what horses do also. Keeps the flies away. The horses are down by the river, he said, in his usual gruff manner. We'll have to go down there. He seized a pitchfork and stabbed it into a big pile of hay, which he then hoisted onto his shoulder. I pulled my large Gladstone bag from the car and set off behind him. It was difficult to keep up with the farmer's brisk pace, even though he must have been 50 years older than me. I was glad when we reached the bottom of the hill because the bag was very heavy and I was getting rather hot. I saw the two horses standing in the shallows of the pebbly river. They were nose to tail and were rubbing their chins against each other's backs. Below them, a carpet of green turf ran up to a high, sheltered ridge, while all around clumps of oak and beech blazed in the autumn sunshine. They're in a nice place, Mr. Skipton, I said. Aye, they can keep cool in the hot weather, and they've got the barn when the winter comes. Oh, yeah, there's the barn. And then there they are. Next page. Do these have page numbers? They probably don't. Okay. Oh, let's hope I don't miss one. Okay. I wonder if that's a Clydesdale. That sure is a pretty horse. I know this is probably a Percheron or something. It's beautiful. At the sound of the voice, the two big horses came trotting up from the river. The gray one first, and the chestnut followed a little more slowly and limping slightly. They were fine big cart horses, but I could see that they were old from the sprinkling of white on their faces. Despite their age, however, they pranced around old John, stamping their enormous feet, throwing their heads about, and pushing the farmer's cap over his eyes with their muzzle. "Get over, leave off," he cried. He pulled at the gray horse's forelock. "This is Bonny. She's well over 20 years old." Then he ran a hand down the front leg of the chestnut. "And this is Dolly. She's nearly 30 now, and not one day's sickness until now." "When did they last do any work?" I asked. "Oh, about 12 years ago, I reckon," the farmer replied. I stared at him in amazement. 12 years. Had they been down here all that time? Just playing about down here. They've earned their retirement." For a few seconds he stood silent, shoulders hunched, hands deep in the pockets of his tattered coat. I almost said cloak, but it's actually a coat, not a cloak. "They worked very hard when I had to struggle to get this farm going," he murmured, and I knew he was thinking of the long years those horses had to pull the plow, drawn the hay and harvest wagons, and had done all the hard work which the tractors do now. I noticed that Dolly... Oh, I've got kind of a glare here. Sorry about that. I might have to move my book a little bit. "I noticed that Dolly was a bit lame when I came down with their hay yesterday," I said. "Luckily, I come down each day." "You mean that you climb down that hillside every single day?" I asked. "Aye, rain, wind, or snow. They look forward to me bringing a few oats or some good hay." I examined Dolly's foot and found an old nail embedded deep in the soft part of her foot. I was able to pull it out quite easily with a pair of pincers, what we would probably call pliers, and then gave her an anti-tetanus injection to eliminate any risk of later infection. And then there's Bonny, just happily munching hay while Dolly gets her foot worked on. Climbing back up the hill, I couldn't help thinking how wonderful it was that old John had made the long journey to see the horses in all weathers, every day for 12 years. He certainly loved those great animals. A thought struck me, and I turned to him. "You know, Mr. Skipton, it's the Darrowby, or is it Darrowby? I'll say Darrowby. The Darrowby show next Saturday. You should enter the mares in the family pets class. I know they are asking for unusual entries this year. Perhaps you should only take Bonny, since Dolly's foot will be a bit sore for a few days." The farmer frowned. "What on earth are you talking about?" "Go on," I said. "Take Bonny to the show. Those horses are your pets, aren't they?" "Pets," he snorted. You couldn't call one of those great big clodhoppers a pet. I've never heard anything so silly." When he got back to the farmyard, he thanked me gruffly, gave me a nod, and disappeared into his house. Okay, so there's the horses. And then they are. The following Saturday, it was my duty to attend a Darrowby show as a vet in charge. I had spent a pleasant time strolling around the showgrounds, looking at the pens of cattle and sheep, the children's ponies, the massive bulls, and the sheep-dog trials in the neighboring fields. Then over the loudspeaker came the following announcement. Would the entrants for the family pet class please take their places in the ring? And that's a lot of people. And then there's the sheep pen and the sheepdog trials. And I guess that's Darrowby. I keep thinking of Darrowshire from World of Warcraft. Oh, there's someone with a goat. That's cute. Okay. I was always interested in this event, so I walked over and stood by the secretary, who was sitting at a table near the edge of the ring. He was Darrowby's local bank manager, a prim little man with rimless spectacles and a pork pie hat. I could see that he was pleased at the number of entrants now filing into the ring. He looked at me and beamed. They have certainly taken me at my word when I asked for unusual entries this year. The parade was led by a fine white nanny goat, which was followed by a pink piglet. Apart from numerous cats and dogs of all shapes and sizes, there was a goldfish in its bowl, and at least 5 rabbits. There was a parrot on a perch, and some budgies having an outing in their cage. Then an excited buzz of conversation. A man walked into the ring with a hooded falcon on his wrist. "Splendid, splendid," cried Mr. Secretary. But then his mouth fell open, and everyone stopped talking at the most unexpected sight appeared. Okay, so wow, they really do have a lot of entries here. There's the goldfish and the piglet, the goat, several dogs, and there's the falcon even. Let me get a close-up of that. Hooded falcon. Wow. That's amazing. Okay. Old John Skipton came striding into the ring, and he was leading Bonny. But it was a quite different man and horse than I had seen a few days ago. Wow. He really does look different. He's really dressed up. Okay. John still wore the same old tattered coat, tied with a string, but today I noticed that both his socks were the same color, and on his head, perched right in the center, was an ancient bowler hat. It made him almost look smart, but not as smart as Bonny. She was dressed in a full show regalia of an old-fashioned cart horse. Her hooves were polished and oiled, and her long, feathery hair on her lower limbs had been washed and fluffed out. Her mane, tail, and forelocks had been plaited with green and yellow ribbons, and her coat had been groomed until it shone in the sunlight. She was wearing part of the harness from her working days, and it, too, had been polished, and little bells hung from the collar. It quite took my breath away to look at her. That is amazing, by the way. Wow. Mr. Skipton, you can't bring that great thing in here. This is the class for family pets, cried Mr. Secretary, leaping from his chair. Bonny is my pet, responded the farmer. She's part of my family, just like that old goat over there. Well, I disagree, said Mr. Secretary, waving his arms. You must take her out of the ring and go home. Old John Skipton put on a fierce face and glared at the man. Bonny is my pet, he repeated. Just ask Mr. Herriot. I shrugged my shoulders. Perfectly true. This mare hasn't worked for over 12 years and is kept entirely for Mr. Skipton's pleasure. I'd certainly call Bonny a pet. But, sputtered Mr. Secretary. Then he sat down suddenly in his chair and sighed. Oh, very well, then. Go and get into line. That is one massive horse. I'm just saying, because there's... Okay. This art is amazing, by the way. So John turned and led Bonny to a place right in the middle of the other competitors. On one side of them was the little pink piglet, and on the other side was a tortoise. It was a most curious sight. Oh yeah, there's the pink piglet right there, and then there's the tortoise right there. And there's the rabbits, a dog. That's cute. Okay. The task of judging the pets had to be given to the district nurse, who was very sensibly dressed in her official uniform to give her an air of authority. Judging the class was always difficult, and when she looked along the line and kept seeing the great horse, she knew it was going to be very difficult indeed. She looked carefully at every competitor, but her eyes always came back to Bonny. All the rabbits were very sweet, the falcon was impressive, the dogs were charming, and the piglet was cute, but Bonny was magnificent. First prize to Mr. Skipton and Bonny, she announced, and everyone cheered. I think that's her right there. Yeah, that's definitely her. She looks like Doctor Who, kind of. You know, the new Doctor, because now it's like a woman or something. which makes complete sense since he shapeshifts every time he dies. Anyways, let's see. As the rosette was presented, a man came to take a photograph for the local newspaper. It looked as though the great horse knew all about her prize, and she posed there, dignified and beautiful. John, too, stood very erect and proud. But unfortunately, every time the photographer clicked the camera, Bonnie pushed the bowler hat over the farmer's eyes. It was the mare's way of showing her love, but I couldn't help wondering how the picture would come out. Wow, he even did the tail, and that's awesome. After the show, I went back to Dale Close to help John undress Bonnie, and I went with them down the hill to the field by the river. As we approached, Dolly came trotting up from the river, whinnying with pleasure to see her friend and companion again. Her foot is quite healed now, I said, noting the horse's even stride. In the gentle evening light, we watched the two old horses hurry towards each other. Then for a long time they stood rubbing their faces together. "Look at that," said old John with one of his rare smiles. "Bonnie is telling Dolly about her big day." There's the farmhouse and the two horses, and this is it. Bonnie takes first prize at Family Pets class, the Darrowby and Holton Times. And that is the end. That we've been reading. Right here. I was right. Let's look at this list here real quick. Also by John Herriot. All creatures great and small, all things bright and beautiful, all things wise and wonderful. The Lord God made them all. James Herriot's Yorkshire, Moses and Kitten, Only One Wolf, and the Christmas Day Kitten. And there you go. This has been... Oh, this was originally from Kmart. Wow. This has been Bonnie's Big Day by James Herriot. A beautiful book with wonderful art. I also wanted to give a shout out to Ruth Brown for illustrating such a beautiful story with such wonderful pictures. If you like this content, make sure you like and subscribe and ring the bell so you know when I upload. Also, sorry, I'm a little bit distracted here. I'm going to try something new here. Also, if you want to support me in any way, then all that will be in the description below. I've got lots of videos on my channel. Even if you don't like this content, I'm sure something on my channel will strike your fancy. But that being said, that's all for now. As always, thanks for watching, everyone, and have a great day.